Hello and welcome back to I Made This. My name is Ollie and welcome to the nightmare that is my office/workspace. For the past year or so I've been working non-stop on various music videos, short films, creating album artwork or videos for the YouTube channel. And through all these projects I've just accumulated a lot of stuff. And so much stuff that it's just taken over my office. I've got boxes of used plasticine, I've got boxes of unfinished parts for a jumbo Optimus Prime, I've got boxes filled with mini DV tapes for a future project, I've got boxes filled with just random plastic and cardboard tubes just for a future project, whatever that may be. I've just got stuff everywhere and it's just become an absolute nightmare to work in here. Not only that, my actual workstation is a complete mess as well. It's just filled with crap. And I need a way to make this a lot more organised. I don't know about you, but I'm one of these people that I'll pick up a pair of scissors or a knife and I'll be cutting away. And then I'll put them down to work on something else, but then I'll come back to needing said knife or scissors and I just can't find them again. They're in this area somewhere, but I just cannot find them to save my life. And I think I waste hours, if not days, on projects doing that. So I need a way to make this a lot more organised. But yeah, that's what the goal of today's video is all about. It's not just to make this a workable environment, it's also to make it a nice place to work in. So yeah, without further ado, let's get to it. So I'm going to create a backing board that goes to about the height of that shelf there. And on that backing board, I'm going to put some pegboards, and on the pegboards are going to go my tools, such as my glue gun, my Dremel, my drill, my craft knives, all those kinds of things. And I'm also going to have some sides on that backing board, which will be on hinges, and it means that I can place lights on them, but it also means I can swing them out, so if I need to build larger sets on that desk I can do so. And yeah, that's the plan. So before I get to that, the main thing I need to do in this room is completely clear the floor space. I've got a lot of wasted space in this room. Like take this unit for example, it's just mainly filled with paper and a load of other junk in there. And I could probably find a better place for those things elsewhere in the room. So first job is to get rid of that. And then this unit here on top of there, I want to put my old tube TV with my VHS player. Again, get that up off the floor and into a more usable space. But I'm going to have to create like a little housing space for the VHS player so the TV can sit on top of it. And again, in this unit here, there's lots of wasted space. I've got boxes just filled with CDs and tangled up wire, and I also keep all my plasticine in here, and it's all completely junked up, and most of it I can't even get to because down here I've got all these bits and bobs that are actually quite useful, but they're not very useful where they are, so they need to be sorted out and placed somewhere. This unit here I'd like to move to the side of the desk so it frees up underneath the desk so I can actually get my legs underneath it, but it means I might actually have some space as well to put my vacuum chamber and my pressure pot under there. Again, just to completely neaten up the space. The toy chest here I want to put on top of the other unit, and hopefully in there I can keep all my resins and things like that. So yeah, other than the floor space, I think for me the biggest bone of contention in this room are the action figures. There's just far too many of them. It's really overbearing and it's really overstimulating. They're just everywhere. What originally was meant to be just a few toys here and there just to kind of accentuate areas of the room, they have now just run rampant and they are everywhere. And like I said, it's just really overbearing, and I need to whittle them down a bit and free up some space for items for work. And not only that, I have hundreds of DVDs in spaces that are really inaccessible, and I'd like to put some of those back up so that when I'm working I can put a film on or a TV show and things like that. And what I plan to do is mainly get rid of my modern figures. I'll have a few here and there, but mostly get rid of the modern and focus on my vintage toys, because that's where my passion lies and that's where I draw my inspiration from when I'm actually making a toy. Because I don't make super articulated figures, I make figures that are like 5 points of articulation. Not only that, it means I can clear out figures from my detolf, and I can actually put my own figures in there as well and kind of shed a spotlight on those. Because I'm getting to a point with the figures that I make that I'm actually quite proud of them, and I think they look pretty good, and I think it'll look really nice to display the super sculpey first version of a figure next to the resin cast version. So I'm going to strip out these horrible looking risers that I've got. I'm going to put some nice clear acrylic risers and put some lights to really kind of showcase the figures that are inside these detolf. So without further ado, let the action figure cull commence. So a bunch of you are probably wondering, why are you putting away all your action figures? Do you not like them anymore? And there's probably a good deal of you who are like, good, you are 40 years old, you should not be playing with toys at your age. And you'd be correct. But truth be told, I still love action figures, but my love for them has just shifted over the last couple of years. And I just want the space to display my own action figures that I've created, that have come from my own brain, be it from my music videos or short films, or from movies and properties that have never been immortalised in plastic. I mean, I still think these look awesome, but I have all the vintage figures and they kind of scratch that itch for me. And a good portion of these are pretty janky. I'm constantly coming in to my office in the morning and finding a bunch of them and falling onto the floor. And like this one, he can't even stand by himself anymore. He has to like be propped up against the wall. That said, some of them are still awesome though. Look at that one. I might keep him out. What do you reckon? So yeah, when all said and done, I had over 4 tubs full of action figures. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And then the other thing, when you have a lot of toys and you also do a lot of crafting, is that there's no shortage of dust. It's everywhere. And what you see here are a load of films and TV shows that either I haven't watched or upgraded to Blu-ray or 4K. Those all live in my flat. But yeah, I thought it's best to get them out because they're just sitting in boxes doing nothing. And if I have them out on display, I'm more inclined to pick one off the shelf and start watching it. And now it's time to tackle this box full of just random bits and bobs. And it's always really handy to have a bit box where you can put all your cardboard tubes, you know, lollipop sticks, things like that, that you'll eventually need for something down the road. Now, you've got to be careful you don't have too much of this stuff because otherwise you end up just hoarding it for the sake of it. But I've got 2 boxes of the stuff for right now and I think that's just enough for me. So now it's time to sort out this plasticine. Get it all nicely colour coordinated. So it's nice for future Ollie when he's about to do a claymation film. This bag is full of unfinished random action figures that I've been making out of resin for the past, I don't know, 8 years or something. One of the biggest problems you encounter when having a big sort out is finding photos or pictures that you've drawn or just things that you've bought, just unlocking memories, and it kind of becomes a massive sinkhole because you just spend half your time looking through them all. I mean, that was when I was back in a band, I don't know, 20 plus years ago, called Chump State. This is a superhero film I made called Powerless about, I don't know, 15, 16 years ago. It's my best friend Rob, he's wearing a wetsuit covered in latex paint, and they wore them in the middle of the summer, and I'm sure they were dying a death and they probably hated every single second of it, but they did it, and they did it for me, and I appreciate it. So this is a concept we've refined over the years. It's now called Super Zeros, and we've made several short films, and we actually had some professionally made costumes by a guy named Peter Hewitt, and let me tell you, there are damn sight better than wetsuits painted in latex. There's my friend Duncan. He was a zombie in a film that I made called Aim for the Dead about 20 years ago. I'm actually going to be doing a video on the channel about this because it was a pretty important time in my life, and it never came out, so I want to do something about it to mark the 20th anniversary of that, so watch this space. So yeah, this is my feature film that I made called Lost in the Headlights. It's about a rock band. Made it back in 2009 and it cost pennies to make. It's pre-HD, 4K, whatever, and but yeah, this film kind of wears its heart on its sleeve, warts and all. So yeah, as you can see, I used to paint murals on my wall when I was a kid, and 25 plus years later on, you can still see the remnants of this Spider-Man here. I also painted a massive Star Wars one that took over the entire wall as well. So I absolutely love comic books, but several years ago I had a massive cull of a lot of my single issues. But what's left here are some of my favourites, like Mike Allrad's Madman, Darwin Cook's The Spirit, and Tim Sale's Spider-Man Blue. So going back to the Powerless days, we actually self-published our own comic book. We never actually finished the interiors, a lot of it remains uncoloured, but we gave away free at a comic fair. And back in 2008, I actually worked on a film called The Tormented, and they needed a comic book that they could license out. So I said, I've got one. And Ollie Alexander from Years and Years, his character reads it in the dining room of the school where the film's set. And hopefully you can see by this more recent comic book that my artwork has improved. When I was a kid, I got to meet one of my favourite comic book artists, Dave Taylor, who drew Batman amongst others, and he sketched me this wicked Batmobile. I also got sketches from other comic book artists such as Charlie Allrad, who worked on Walking Dead and The X-Files. I even got to go to a special screening of the film Red State and even met Kevin Smith and shared a taxi ride with him. That's a story for another day. So these were originally the autographs of Simon Pegg, Nick Frost and Edgar Wright, but I put the autograph in my bag before the ink had dried and it just went everywhere. When I was a kid, I wrote a letter to Jim Carrey and I got this autograph back, and I don't think it's real, but whatever. And because I'm a complete hoarder, I've kept every single ticket stub for every single film I've ever seen. It's a lot harder now that ticket stubs are just receipts, but I do my best. Some of these date back to 1995 there, Batman Forever. I thought it was that good that I laminated it apparently. I've even got my ticket for Speed 2. Speed 2 was awful. Anyway, that's enough reminiscing for now. Let's get on with the work at hand. Yes! Not gonna lie, I've been looking for that spanner for a long time. I was genuinely concerned I was going to find some living creature under all this crap, and I actually did. I found a pug, and it's a good job too because she went missing several weeks ago, and my wife will be very happy that I've now found her. So I've finally got everything off the floor now, and it's, well, almost everything apart from that plasticine right there, but it's starting to look a lot better. It's still pretty much heaped up on the desks right now, but I really need to think about the flooring to cover up these horrible stains, and I also need to make an additional shelf for my DVDs, and I need to create the backing board for this desk. So off to IKEA we go. Don't know about you, but I always love the thought of going to IKEA, but then when I'm actually there I just get completely anxious and everything is quite overwhelming. I finally found my pegboards that I wanted, but it got quite busy around there, so I was just grabbing things hoping that I'd have what I needed. And obviously we had a couple of hot dogs and some meatballs. Now we're on our way to B&Q, getting the wood, and you'll see my workings out there of the sizes that I needed. And this guy here was cutting the wood for me. I think I annoyed him because he was a little bit grumpy, but he's probably inundated with lots of idiots on a daily basis like myself asking him stupid questions, so I don't blame him. And I've got everything I need. So now I'm going to build the TV stand that's going to house the VCR player. I start off by using contact adhesive just to kind of get the shape of it together. I am actually going to screw it together as you see here, but it just helps kind of put it all together so it's not falling apart as I'm trying to screw it together. Added some extra little bits for stability at the back, because otherwise I felt if I didn't have anything like that it would just collapse in the middle. And then it's just a case of slopping that paint on. And will it fit? Ah, yes. I made it big enough just in case I had to swap it out for another VCR player down the road, and just in case it needed a bit of air in there so it didn't get too hot. And now I'm building the backing board. As you can see, I've put all the braces in, but it wasn't strong enough, so I had to back it with more MDF and drilled it to the back of the desk as well. And that made it really secure. And now I'm putting the hinges on so they open outwards. This is just in case I need a bigger space to put a set or something like that in the future. As you can see, I kind of cracked the MDF as I was drilling in because I obviously bought MDF that was a little too thin. I actually did ask at B&Q if they had a thicker one, and they went, no, this is the thickest one we've got. So I got it all cut up and ready, and then I walked around the corner. And what did I find but thicker pieces of MDF? But oh well, what are you gonna do? So maybe this is the first of an ongoing project to kind of build the perfect backing board. So now it's time to paint the backing board. I really didn't have a big enough brush for this. Yeah, and the overall finish I wasn't 100% pleased with. So it took me a little while to realise I probably should be rollering this. So in a few seconds you'll see that I get the roller out and then I go over it again and it looks a hell of a lot better. And there we go, all painted black. It looks really nice, I think. I'm really happy with that. Now, the way that I designed this backing board was that the pegboards were going to go portrait and not landscape. Landscape, it turns out, is the way that they have to be, because that when you place the attachments on, they sit in nicely, whereas if you have it portrait, they just fall out. So I had to bend back all the metal tabs and then bend them back on themselves so that they would fit nicely and wouldn't fall out. And then for these hooks and pegs, I actually have to drill a hole into the pegboard so that it will sit in nicely, because obviously it's supposed to go in the other way around and lock in. So that means I have to know exactly where I want all my pegs and hooks to go, because I'm going to be drilling holes. And obviously that goes against what a pegboard is supposed to be. It's supposed to be quite modular, so you can move things around as and when you want, whereas I'm kind of locked in on this and I have to decide exactly where I want things to go, which is annoying. There you go, as you can see, they get in there eventually. And because this is not the correct way they're supposed to go, all the boxes just fell out of the weight of everything that was inside of them. So I had to come up with a way to lock them in place so they didn't keep falling out. So I had a load of Velcro, so I thought I'm going to make some little Velcro tabs that will kind of lock them in place. And thankfully that has seemed to work. So I'm trying to eliminate the use of tripods and stands in my office. So I found these desktop stands so I can put my lights on them, but as you can see, annoyingly, they don't fit onto my desk. So now I'm creating some little attachments that will go onto each side of my desk so that my desktop stands have something to clamp onto. And I glue them together with contact adhesive. And then once you're finished, leave them to dry for a couple of minutes, and then when you push them together, it will create a really strong bond. And then I completely covered the block in contact adhesive, and then covered some EVA foam in some contact adhesive as well. And this is pretty unnecessary, but I am very clumsy and I know that I'm going to walk into this or scrape myself or get splinters, and it's just a way to safeguard myself so that I don't hurt myself in the future, because I know that will happen. And now it's time for a little bit of branding, and this was made for me by my friend Martin from Coffee and Gasoline. And then this was made for me by my best friend Rob from The House Down South. Thanks guys. So now I'm just putting together my acrylic risers. Fairly simple, nothing really to say about this, but yeah. However, as you can see, they're a little bit smaller than I thought. So I'm gonna have to kind of be a bit more inventive with my displays. You know what? I think that's pretty good actually. So instead of getting a rug, I got some rubber backed industrial carpet, and now I'm just cutting it to size so it's nice and square. Look at that, looks miles better already. And then I bought some blackout blinds because for stop motion animation you need to really control the lighting, so I can't let any natural light in basically. And now I'm just cutting them to fit the windows. And because my office is at my parents' house, I thought, well, I'll get my dad to put the blinds up, because if I'm drilling holes into the wall or into the window frames, then he should be the guy to do it, not me. And then I bought some little lights to put inside my shelving and my details. And these are pretty cheap lights, you get 6 of them in a pack, and they just work off batteries, and they glow multiple different colours. And now I'm placing all the doors onto my units, and I absolutely love doing stuff like this. Putting together IKEA flat pack furniture is one of my favourite things to do. And yeah, that's it. I think I'm pretty much done. So it's taken me about 2 weeks to get the room to a point where I'm actually happy with it. I have culled around 80% of my action figure collection, and those of you who are watching are probably thinking, well, I can still see loads of action figures in your room now, and that just goes to show how many I had before. And I'm really happy with the ones that I've kept, and some of these will eventually be whittled away when I start making more of my own action figures, and I'll need space to put those in. I built a shelf in the DVD area so all the DVDs are upright and nicely displayed. I didn't show how to make the shelf in the video because I think it's pretty straightforward. It's a plank of wood with some brackets on it. I bought some lighting to put inside my detolfs and my shelvings just to make my action figures pop, to showcase some of my favourite trinkets and my film awards. And I've put in some clear acrylic risers in the detolfs. I've made it look even more streamlined and make the action figures pop even more than they ever did. And the fact they're a little bit smaller kind of made it so that I've had to be a bit more inventive with my display, and I think it's even better for it. I've made a little unit to house my VCR player underneath so the weight of the TV doesn't crush it. I've put doors on all my units to make it look even more streamlined. I've sorted through all my boxes of random bits of plasticine and colour coordinated it. I've bought flooring to cover up the horrible carpet underneath, which has been abused by years of claymation, so it's covered in plasticine, paint, you name it, it's on this carpet. And the flooring that I've got just covers it up nicely. Not the whole of it, unfortunately, but enough of it that it just looks a little bit neater. We've got the blackout blinds up, which is really going to help control the lighting in here when I do stop motion animation. I bought an additional camera mount because my other one had broken somewhat, but I was able to use that one for my microphone, so when I do podcasts in the future I bring the arm round and I can start recording straight away without having to set tripods up and stuff like that. And that was one of my key things in this room, was to get everything off the floor, like tripods and things like that. And the only thing I'd have is like the proton pack and my vacuum chamber and pressure pot, etc. And the centerpiece of the whole room is the backing to my desk with the pegboards on. And not gonna lie, it was an absolute pain in the arse to do because nothing worked how I'd originally planned, but I got there in the end through blood, sweat and tears, and yeah, I'm really happy with how it's turned out. So if you've watched this video for the past half an hour, I really appreciate it. I know it's different from the usual type of video that I put out. It's not like me making a toy or a claymation music video or whatever. But I hope you can see this was something that I needed to do, pretty much for my own sanity above anything else. I've been working non-stop for the past 4 or 5 years, going from job to job to job to job, without any time in between to have a breather. And this room had kind of become a manifestation of that, and it was just an absolute cluster, to be honest. It was just a mess. And so was my brain. My brain was a mess. It was like scrambled egg. And cleaning this room out has really started to help tidying up my own brain as well. I got to do a lot of thinking while I was sorting out this room. And one of the things I realised while I was sorting out this office is that I'm kind of addicted to what I do for a living, which is not necessarily a good thing. It's good to be passionate about what you do for a living and care about what you're doing, but it's another thing to be really silly about it and kind of go over the top. And some days I'll be working from 7 a.m. till 2 a.m. the next morning, and I'll do that day in, day out for weeks and weeks on end, sometimes months. And it's just not healthy, and it has negative impacts, not just on myself, but on my friends and my family. And you know, I've neglected a lot of things because of that and putting work above other things, and I shouldn't do that. That's not a good thing. So sorting out this room, I've kind of come to that realization. So hopefully in the future I'm going to be a lot more mindful about how I approach projects in the future and how I go about them, and how I can be a bit more streamlined with it without kind of losing the quality, because I like to do a good job and produce good videos, and I don't want to stop doing that, but I have to be very conscious about how I go about doing that in the future and making sure that I don't hurt myself and others in the process. But yeah, I'm actually really happy with how the room's turned out. It's a lot nicer place now. It's a lot more inviting, and it's a lot more fun to work in now. You know, I can be crafting away while I've got a VHS on in the corner, or I can play a bit of the PlayStation after doing a bit of editing, you know, and yeah, that's really nice to have a little bit of downtime while I'm able to do work as well. Because that's another thing that I've neglected, is just enjoying things, because like I'll be working away on something and I'll be like, okay, in an hour I'll treat myself to a game, or I'll put a film on or something, and that hour comes and goes and I haven't played a game or watched a film or whatever, and I kind of almost punish myself in a really weird way to just keep working. And I don't know why I do it. I have no idea for what reason that is, but yeah, gonna be a lot more mindful about that in the future. But yeah, one thing I wanted to address was that I've crossed over 3,000 subscribers, which is amazing. And I know I haven't even put a video out since March, so I really appreciate those who have stuck with me, and all those who have recently subscribed. I really appreciate it. I've got a load more content coming. I've got several videos in the works in various stages of development, and they should be out very soon. And yeah, I think that about wraps it up for today. Hope you enjoyed watching the video, and if you did, please hit the like button. If you don't do so already, please consider subscribing to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. And until next time, take care and goodbye.